Emma Gibbens, a communication and leadership expert and keynote speaker, who is passionate about honest connections, leading with curiosity and breaking down the walls that keep us isolated. We explore the epidemic of loneliness, how ego and internal voices hold us back, and why community and real love are more needed than ever. If you're craving deeper connections to others and to yourself, this one's for you.
Emma Gibbens, welcome to The Growth Concept. I'm truly looking forward to this conversation, and I truly feel it's going to be filled with curiosity and adventure. Welcome.
An adventure in your earballs. Welcome. Great to be here. Thanks.
Emma, your work has shaped people's approach and leadership styles towards communication, but it's not just a skill, but a cultural force. I really like that sentence, and it's a sentence I heard online a few weeks ago. How would you describe your communication journey? Let's go back to younger Emma. How did everything start off, and how would you describe what you do?
Hilarious. So I think my roots started when I was 5 years old and my parents got divorced, and navigating that through a lot of change as the eldest kid. I quickly became a diplomat, a problem solver, a connector in a family context. And it's done a lot of therapy, very, very comfortable talking about it, but it is it's a very early stage in your life to have to be adaptable, to navigate different contexts, to manage your tone, to do context switching. And so, I guess that's probably the origin story all the way back there. But then when I started my professional career was in 2008 when I started to work on political campaigns. And I didn't intend to start doing that. My friend Emily asked me to go door knocking one day, and after talking to strangers for an afternoon, I was hooked. I loved it. Most people hate talking to strangers, but I loved it. So I was like, all right, let's keep doing more of that. And that led me on the journey then of working on political campaigns across Minnesota, Wisconsin, in California, when I worked at a startup that did campaign technology in different countries around the world. And ultimately, campaigning is what brought me to Western Australia. Right.
Wow. Okay, let's zone in. Okay, so your parents getting divorced, that was a big turning point in your life. But how did that moment or moments of experience shape that curiosity? And because I know like divorce separates families and you hear a lot of the negative stuff, but it seems like the curiosity side may have been a positive for you.
I mean, it's all about how you frame it and approach your past, right? Yeah. So definitely it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows, but if I were to write the positive story of it, absolutely. It was a time where as a young person, I was thrust into a situation where I had to navigate it. And as a kid, you don't have any resources, right? It's not like you have money. You don't know what your time is. You don't even have like emotional bandwidth a lot of the time, but you do have words, right? Okay. And you are able to communicate, and you are able to figure out what words create what kinds of outcomes. So how do you soothe someone? How do you create a plan to help? How do you bring people together and create connection when there has been a disruption of connection? So my voice, my words were the only tool I had as a young person to create a positive impact on my family.
You were 5. And
I've never zoned in on this so much publicly as well. So I'm like, cool.
It's all right, we're all in this together. You were 5 and you were like, I feel like this is such a big concept for a 5-year-old to comprehend, because I know when I was 5, man, I was too busy playing with my little army figurines. Like, who knows what I was doing? But you were already going into a realm of curiosity and experimenting with communication, seeing that firsthand. But how did that moment obviously transition? You were saying that door knocking sales got introduced into your life and that pivoted more into the political side of things. But that communication and door knocking, where do the dots connect there?
Well, I feel like I need to do a massive disclaimer. Like, everyone has a superpower that's innate to them. Mine has always been talking to strangers.
Okay.
Right? So, like, I remember I was at the grocery store and I got talking to an old lady about mandarins, and then my mom had to rush back and, like, grab me, right? Or, like, my name's come over the intercom at grocery stores a bunch as a kid because I'd get distracted talking with someone, or I'd go down an aisle, or and then my mom would lose me, and thus my name comes over the intercom. So, I have a built-in bias towards talking talking to strangers. So door knocking for change, and it's not sales door knocking. It's conversations with community, with different people in the community about their values, what they want to see in the world, what they want to change, and then motivating them from those core values to participate in civic process, right? In our democracy, in electing people that create the change that they want to see. So it sort of was a perfect collision of my bias and my love of talking to strangers, my inherent gift, as well as my idealism and my hope and my optimism that we can all create a better future when we work together. So door knocking sort of hit that sweet spot where that Venn diagram overlapped.
I love that. Your door knocking, obviously, when I hear that word, I'm like, sales
gross,
person.
yuck.
Oh, what's going on there?
Especially in Australia.
Yeah.
You guys don't do that at all.
And it's like you hear a knock, the dog's barking, you just peek out the window. It's just like, nah.
No. And
Walk
culturally
away.
too,
Yeah.
like we've changed. Like I grew up in a small town where, like, yeah, if I was in the neighborhood, I'd pop over. We'd always drop into my grandparents' house or our friends who lived down the road. After school, I'd stay at my neighbor's house 3 doors down. Like it was much more randomly showing up at people's houses was more acceptable. And now we're in an era where like a phone call is violence. Like imagine if I rocked up at your door unannounced, people would be like, "You're so weird." And I'm like, I just want to say hi. I was in the neighborhood. What's up?
Do you think growing up, small town Minnesota?
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Alaska before that. So Fairbanks, Alaska was maybe 10,000 people and Duluth, Minnesota was 90,000.
Wow, okay. Do you think growing up in such a small cultural, and I imagine it'd be family orientated town, do you think that contributed to your naturally confident manner? Because for me, for example, I'm a very naturally confident person because I was raised to use my words and to express my feelings using my words, and that I'm so thankful for that. But I know for some people that's not the case. But for you, that came so much earlier than what it came for me. Did having that community centre as you were growing up have that impact, you reckon?
I wouldn't attribute it towards that. I definitely would attribute my confidence towards those early moments where I had to fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but let me try. And again, a natural bias.
Yeah.
What I would attribute having a strong community, the glue that holds community together is conversations, right? That's how mutual aid works. Like, I don't know how to connect this person to that person to exchange the thing they both need if I don't talk to them. And so I think the strength of community growing up in a small town, as well as the strength of community, my mother's a painter, my father's a musician. They both have very deep communities of musicians and artists and the queer community, and seeing how communities interact and the organism of a community. That's, I think, the real gift I got from growing up in a small town and with those niche communities.
Do you think that's lacking in this day and age?
Enormously. I mean, like, well, how far do you want to go down this rabbit hole? But like the named thing is that the lack of third spaces. So where do we hang out besides work and our homes?
Third spaces. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Third spaces. What does that mean?
So like in smaller towns, in other places, historically, we've had a third space beyond the home and beyond work where we hang out. That could be church, that could be community center, that could be community sport, that could be, some type of town hall. There's a third space where we can hang out. And those have been on the decline dramatically, right? Religion is now increasing slightly for different reasons, but, we haven't had organized religion. We don't go to church once a week and hang out. Australia does actually a better job of this than the States. You create third spaces through your public parks. Those are places where people go and interact. It's really beautiful how your built environment encourages connection outside the home and outside of work. But yeah, with that decline of that third space, where else do we meet people? Where else do we get to know new people? Where else do we have these conversations? And now with the increase in flex work and hybrid work, working from home, some people only have one space. They're only at home. They get everything Amazon delivered. Where do they meet new people? Where do they have conversations that are outside their bubble, outside their echo chamber? It just, the strength of community comes when we rub up against people who are not like us, who don't exist in the same workplace, workspace, speak the same jargon, who aren't in our home and related to us.
Yeah, I actually haven't thought of that before, because on that point on community and relating this to culture and public speaking, communication, that a lot of it's online. So even, I would say it's in your pocket too. The phone as well.
Yeah.
I would say that has a massive.
Didn't even mention the digital world, right? Hey,
Like, I see that point on the suburban area and how there's parks to have that community focus. Do you think that and having I want to say distinguish between the home and like your home life and then another.
Yeah, space.
How would you word it? Like another space, or because a lot of people that's work though.
Yeah, exactly.
So then it's home, work.
The pub maybe is the third space in Australia.
Yeah,
like that's probably the closest we get to. Yeah.
Do you think that's essential to having that more community orientated community orientated approach to? I want to say communication, but that will come with having that community. Do you think having that third space is super important?
Yeah, absolutely. My brain is like jamming with like too many ideas at once. So I was like, oh, I gotta grab my notebook. Yeah. Okay, so I'll start it. The root of this issue is that we're in a pandemic of loneliness. Right?
I see that as well.
People are isolated, they're siloed, they're rising individualism, everyone's scared, everyone has fear, we're lacking that connection. And that connection can come from family, and absolutely, I hope everyone has really strong and lovely, supportive family and friends connections, our chosen family.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you can have some connection at work. It's not prioritized as much, but you can. But then where else do you connect with people? Where do you meet new people who you could connect with? Where is the opportunity to make new friends? And you really have to be assertive to go out and get it, to go out and find it. My little sister moved to a new town 8 months ago. And so I've been encouraging her to like go out and meet new people, find the neurodivergent craft night, go on the hike for women around the lake thing, hit the yoga class and sound healing. I don't know, like whatever you're into. Actually, she came back and said she found like a fan dance course with like fan dance apparently there's a style of dance that uses fans, and so she's like, I'm curious about this. I'm like, great, I'm glad you're curious, go do it.
Wow.
You have to be quite assertive, you have to push past those social anxieties to get there. It takes a lot of courage, but absolutely everyone's craving connection, and we need to be able to push outside of our norms, outside of our comfort zone, to go build that connection. And I just want to add one more thing that just on the built environment side, like our homes are so much more isolated than they used to be as well. People drive into their garage door, they close their garage door behind them, and then they never interact with their neighbors or people around them. And I think there's an element of, we have more connection ever than possible with digital connection, right? We can meet people from all around the world, and oh my goodness, we have a shared interest in, I don't know, I'm watching the show Suits right now. Oh my gosh, we love Suits. Let's talk about Harvey Specter, and oh my gosh, the things, right? So you have your niche community of people who are in that with you. Beautiful. But we absolutely are lacking in local connection and people who are around you, who are proximate to you. And that's where the energetic exchange of connection really, really feeds that starved soul for connection.
The epidemic of loneliness. I do see that, but I also feel that. Oh, I got a good point on to say. For this. Yes. For example, Perth is a very small, isolated city compared to everywhere else in the world.
Most isolated city in the world.
Wow. And there is so much community in Perth that is on the media these days. Another good thing on the media and social media these days is you can find a community that resonates with you. You just have to look for it. And I think the problem with this epidemic, I want to see if you agree on this, is people get validation on, I'm lonely, I'm hopeless as such, quote unquote, but they're not actively putting themselves out there in the environment for change, for opportunity. For example, the amount of run clubs in Perth, so many. If running's not your thing, there's cold nips. I know every Wednesday morning down at Leighton Beach, a community just meet up. So there's communities out there, and the epidemic of loneliness has two sides. What are your thoughts on that?
What are the two sides again? Can you describe it in one?
For example, the community of, obviously, the people actively getting together, actively seeking out opportunities to connect, but also the people that are happy in the complaining about they're lonely or they're their hopelessness or there's, the world's against me.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, they get validation and that may be supporting the loneliness.
I mean, whatever you believe is true.
Yeah.
Right. And if those people have a story that they are lonely or unworthy of love, then that will be true. And so how deep do you want to go into your own personal development? Look at those things, have those honest conversations with yourself. And a lot of people shy away from that work. Like, oh, I feel yuck, but it must just because I'm yuck and I don't want to do anything to change. Like, I can't help you with that. That's a you thing that you believe.
Yeah.
And again, I get that bullying exists, social anxiety exists. Like, I'm not saying that you haven't had some hard knocks, perhaps, or some evidence that makes you believe that that is true, but we have enormous strength of will, enormous strength of the mind to help shape our reality. And so, absolutely, I think some people give in, they throw in the towel, and this is my life, this is how I want to live. I would encourage them to not do that. But ultimately, all I can do is myself. All I can do is inspire them, show them how I live, model a different way of being and believing, and hope that they wake up and believe in themselves and believe in the power of connection and their ability to connect again.
You said that having those...
Really fucking deep, man. I'm
Yeah.
like,
You were saying that having those real honest conversations with yourself. Obviously, I imagine you've had these real honest conversations with yourself as well. I imagine if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have as well. What did that look like for you? Because this is something that's said a lot in self-development. But what did your honest conversations...
You say did as if it's past tense. It's always evolving.
Yeah.
There's so many layers. I mean, I remember I was probably your age and starting this, being like, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I like doing? When am I in flow? Like some of those basic questions, just to be like, how do I interact with the world? Okay, I have a greater awareness now of me and the impact I have on others. Personally, I've been going through some mega life changes. So now at 35, my conversations are doing like really deep shadow work. Like, here's a thing I do that's actually really sucky. And like, I'm not proud of it, but I have to look at it to be like, all right, cool. Well, this is how my behavior shows up. This is based on this belief. So what am I going to do about that? Am I going to change it? Am I going to be aware of it? Am I going to navigate around it? Accommodate it? Like there's the layers just keep going. So if you're on a self-awareness journey, just keep digging, keep looking, and I don't think I'll ever reach the bottom.
What do you mean by that? You were saying that you had that what were you saying about those questions and you had to the shadow like explain to me what does that mean?
Well, I'll give you an example of my. This is gonna get. We're doing a lot of personal stuff is on display today, which it's funny. I'm having a reaction to being vulnerable. That's what I'm observing in myself right now. Is I'm shy about being vulnerable. So this is good practice for me and practice and courage. So thank you for creating the space. So an example in the communications domain. One of the tools that kids also have at their disposal, they have communication, but you can learn how to manipulate quite quickly, right? Being manipulative is a game of words to get what you want.
Exactly.
That has come up for me as something that is part of my shadow, and it was unconscious to me. I was sometimes conscious, sometimes often a lot more unconscious. And now that it's been pointed out to me and I've been reflecting on it, I'm like, oh, okay, so I am manipulative. Now, what do I do with that? Well, what I've been doing is I try to find a spun positive alternative to make it more manageable or more okay. The spun alternative of manipulative is motivating, right? I know how to help someone into action, move, to create momentum, right? Being manipulative can be quite motivating, particularly when used for good. But yeah, that's an example of what shadow work means, is being like, okay, cool. This is a part of me. That's okay. Humans are messy. Humans are fallible. The yin and the yang, the light and the dark. We all have a mix of it. And it's been a very human and it's added so much depth to who I am and to how I navigate the world and navigate my conversations and communications and my connection with others, having looked at the entirety of myself, including the dark sides.
Wow, I imagine that doesn't come easy, especially with something that
It's really confronting when you stumble across one and you're like, and you know when it rings true, and then you're like, oh, fuck.
And it's like, it may, like, if it's cold out too, it's like, oh, shit. Oh, man, like, there's no going back. And I think the only thing, okay, this is another good point. Yeah, there's no going back. But how are you going to move forward in it? Because, yes, hiccups, bumps come along the way, but how did you move forward with that feedback or that observation, self-observation?
Well, yeah, and I firstly want to note that, like, someone who tells you something confronting like that, or who holds up a mirror and reflects those traits, that's a love action, right? That's an action of love, to be like, hey, I reckon you should look at this because it doesn't feel good as your friend when you do things like that. And you're like, damn, I'm sorry for hurting my friend. And thank you, friend. What an act of love to tell me.
Exactly.
You know, so take it with grace. Take it on. What do you do with it? I mean, I'm in that work right now, so I don't totally know. I don't think whatever you believe is true, right? So I'm working through that right now, actively being very compassionate with myself, you know. The stories that we tell ourselves, the feelings that we have, they are separate from who we are and from the soul that is in our bodies. That's sometimes also helpful as I create some separation. But mostly, I think looking forwards, it's okay. Acknowledging I have this thing. Awareness, shining light already does quite a lot of the work, but then how am I going to bring more intention into my communication? What kind of questions am I going to ask myself? Like, hey, what is motivating me to do it this way? Or like, Emma, take a pause. Are you manipulating? What do you actually want? Why don't you just say the thing you want rather than manipulating it to create the thing you want?
Yeah.
So those tools of self-reflection, self-questioning, I don't know. And what a messy answer because I'm still in the mess.
Yeah, nah, I feel that. What role did ego play in that process?
Yeah.
Because hear me out. Everyone has ego, and you got to have a healthy amount of ego. Everyone, especially in self-development, ego's the enemy. But if you have no ego, then you're insecure. So you got to have that healthy balance. And I think even for myself, I'm trying to find that healthy balance of actively seeking out criticism so you can improve, but also not being like, oh, I'm shit. I'm like failing, being like, oh, God damn, I'm achieving something.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to say in this. Like, you have to have an element of ego to put yourself out there, right?
Yes,
We're both
correct.
keynote speakers. I come from artists. Like, artists need to have a bit of ego to have a point of view, to say something interesting, to call something out. You need a bit of belief in yourself and your uniqueness. It's just something I watch. I did a lot of ego work in my early 20s, and I remember like later in my 20s I was telling my friend like, oh, I'm really worried about my ego, and she's like, dude, you're like one of the most humble people I know. I don't think you have to worry about that. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I've done the work, you know, and now it's come around again. I don't another spun alternative is that I've been quite arrogant at times, but actually the root of arrogance is a deep insecurity because you're trying to prove yourself, you're trying to be more, you're trying to perform in a way. And so again, like all these little realizations help you become aware of it and then become, so like now I use, India Ari has this great quote of make self-worth your work. And so yes, making myself more secure is making me less arrogant, is making sure my ego isn't running me and that I'm leveraging it when it's useful, but that I have this deeper core and connection within myself. So the ego isn't the one that's in charge. It's kind of like the whole who's in the driver's seat. Like, is the ego in the driver's seat? Is my body in the driver's seat? Or is like Emma in the driver's seat?
How do you know who's driving?
Awareness. Yeah, you just have to... just reflection, looking back on it. The conversations you have with yourself they get easier over time because you get to navigate yourself more.
Yeah.
One of the early tools I started using was I made like a symposium of Emmas within me. Like, so I gave them names. One was in my negative voice. The one that kept undermining me was Becky. And I'd be like, Becky be like, you're a piece of shit. You're not as good as you think you are. No, 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 no. You know, the negative voice. We all have negative thoughts. I think a lot of us are doing work to undo negative thinking. And I'd be like, fuck you, Becky. You're not right. Go away. You know, I've had Roger in there. Roger was a different kind of voice. So like I sometimes name them to give them a personification of those thoughts. Because, you know, when those thoughts come in, where does the root of that thought? Is that from me, or is that someone else's voice that I've projected? Or, yeah.
I think that's such an interesting concept. I recently heard that on another podcast that this lady was talking about that voice in your head, and she was saying she repeats to herself out loud no matter where she is, delete, I'm deleting that thought.
Nice.
And I think that's so wonderful to have that switch or that call to action when something like that happens, because that way you're switching yourself from a current state of negativity to a future state of positivity straight away.
Well, and I'd say more so it's controlling your thoughts. It's wrangling your thoughts. People, like, thoughts just sort of happen, and then we make feeling and meaning from those thoughts, and then we act upon that feeling and that meaning that we've made. But you can control your thoughts, and it's sort of that controlling your thinking is the first step. That's why meditation is such a useful tool, because it gives you space to recognize that you are not your thoughts. They just sort of float by.
You're saying that obviously you had a situation with manipulation and ego. Did you have that realization that that was someone else in the driving seat that you may have not been aware, or another version of yourself which you may not be aware? Like,
I've only recognized it in past reflection.
okay.
So I've only after the fact have I now seen that as what it is. And I'm currently in the really annoying growth stage where my defaults, my habits, my patterns are still to act like that, but I'll recognize it like 2 minutes later, 5 minutes later, 30 seconds afterwards, and be like, God damn it, Emma, did we just... you did it again. Fuck. Like, I didn't catch it. Fuck. You know, and so I'm in this really annoying where I'm really sick of myself. I'm so fucking sick of myself, and yet I have these habits that are deeply ingrained that I'm trying to rewrite and undo, and it's like rewriting code, but it doesn't come easily. It resets every night. So I'm like, all right, well, let's try again. So again, just having that awareness has now made me be more aware of when it's happening in real time and now in future interactions. Still hasn't quite got to the point where I can stop it before it happens, but I know it'll tick over to that point soon.
I think if you were looking at the growth scale from 0% to 100%, that awareness phase is, what, 75%? You would 75% of the way of...
Like being aware of it?
Of being like, okay, I now know. For example, filler words in public speaking. People who don't know that they're saying it say it so often because it's that habitual pattern. But then you become aware, and then you may still say, it's just like, fuck, I said it. Damn. Is it kind of the similar process?
Yeah, similar. I mean, with any behavior change, right? Like, we aren't robots. We don't switch overnight. I have a friend who has annoyingly supreme willpower, and I get so jealous whenever he creates change, because if it's 75% for the rest of us, it's like 25% for him. And I'm like, okay, great. Congrats, you're enlightened. You can just change your behavior like that. No, but I think for most of us, it is behavior change. And it's even... our behaviors reflect our beliefs. And so you have to go even to that deeper level to what is the root belief here? What's the origin of that belief? And rewrite the belief, which then changes the behavior.
Such a good point. Man, I'm absolutely loving this conversation.
We've gone so far into a corner I did not expect.
I think it's really good and powerful. It's like I plan out these episodes, and we end up tapping into something so much deeper. But one thing we were going to talk about is Gen Z. And
oh yeah, it's so weird to like hold that space for the deeper exploration, the unexpected, emergent, and then be like, oh yes, back to the surface level thing.
No, I think we can incorporate that in the deepness.
Oh, good, you're gonna link it. I love it.
Because the process of growth and that awareness phase through the ego, the setbacks, the realizing that you're holding manipulation, which isn't for anyone other than against yourself, is something I am constantly needing to remind myself of and be aware of my actions, what I say, how I say it, as well as the hit patterns. But with Gen Z and Gen A coming through with the media, a lot of that process is covered up by distractions. And something I've learned recently as well is the silence in your head is where the progress is lying. And what I mean by that is the silence that you haven't had for so long is the silence between that progress. Do you see it kind of the same of the stillness in, for example, you've just been on a retreat in New Zealand. Did you find that that silence had a bit of a self-discovery factor?
Yeah. So here, confirm if I make sense of this the right way.
Yeah.
But we, as a society, we choose to numb, right? We numb with alcohol, we numb with overeating, we numb with TV, we numb with phones, right? We numb with scrolling. And so you're like, if you did like, let's have an interaction at work that day and you're like, oh, that person made me feel gross, but I didn't really act to the best. I could look at it, or I'm just going to scroll. I'm just going to numb. Whereas actually you should probably be like, all right, cool. I'm going to sit with it. I should probably journal it and just really like look at it and be okay with that discomfort of looking at it. So I don't, and that is usually silence. It is usually, there is no inputs. It's just you talking with yourself. So that's kind of how I interpret what you mean.
Yeah, I'm seeing it the same way, especially with the numbing of social media. Like that's something, even I catch myself out when I'm so mentally exhausted. I've worked all day. I'm now needing to send emails, schedule, and I'm just on TikTok. And I'm like, bro, what am I doing?
And you enter like, oh, I'll just do it for half an hour. 3 hours later, 2 purchases later. Like, just.
It's bad. And
it's designed to suck you in. So just for some compassion.
Yeah, it's, I'm aware, I'm self-aware, which is good. I have app limits on my phone.
Oh, great.
30 minutes, but I always skip it.
Yeah.
Especially when social media is part of your job too.
Yes, true.
Then
that
it's
is
like,
the hard.
Okay, work, you know how typically we have work and then once we go to work, we disconnect, we go home. Or sometimes we bring it with us. But it's in my pocket right now. Literally.
All the time.
And I think that's also a barrier that we are all going to have to face or come to eventually on that life and disconnect. I'm not going to say work-life balance because that's pretty faded these days, but that life and disconnect, I think that's incredible, kind of that peace moment in your head.
I'm just going to add something there. There's a really great article. Many people have rewritten it now in various ways. Pretty sure there's a TED Talk too on the 7 kinds of rest. And so I'm just thinking about the example of like, you get to the end of your workday, you're gassed, and we just turn to a screen to numb. But actually, I've been finding that, sometimes silence, just staring at a wall for a bit and letting my brain work itself out. Going for a walk is a really great kind of rest for me. The ones that surprise me, though, is creative rest. Like, so sitting down and doodling, drawing, playing my cello, that actually gives me energy after a day that I feel gassed. And there comes this moment where it's like, make the choice. Like, am I going to eat vegetables? Am I going to be healthy? Am I going to go on a walk? Am I going to create something? Am I going to read a book for fun? Am I going to find a different kind of rest? Or I'm going to eat junk food and just binge on chips and TikTok. Like, and there's this choice we have of what kind of rest, how we're choosing to spend our time. And whenever I choose the more nutritious version, I always feel so much better, and it actually refills the battery. So absolutely, we should do more intentional rest. Perhaps would be the insight I've discovered.
Obviously, that doesn't come easy. At what point in your life did that click with you? Because this is something I'm still learning myself. And I'm going to be learning for a little bit longer.
Well, and also you don't know what you like or who you are. You know, my little sister's going through a very similar thing, and she's like, I don't even know what I like. And I'm like, I don't know either. You have to go try things. Like, it's only learned through doing. You can't be like, I'm going to think it through. Okay, I think I like embroidery. And then you get there, you try it, and you're like, oh, this fucking tiny needle. I fucking, no. Like, that was me like 6 years ago. I was like, nope, embroidery is not my game. So you have to try things, right?
Okay.
And similar with people who are in career paralysis. I'm like, oh, God, what do I do? Make a list. Go through it. Make a priority list. Try one thing. If you don't like it, cross it off. Try another thing. Don't like it, cross it off. And one thing I also love about finding your types of rest or what restores you, the weirder, the better. Right? There's going to be something that's very uniquely you, and you just have to kind of giggle at it and be like, oh, that's so cringe, but I really am into it. That's your sweet spot. That's your thing.
What's that for you then?
Like one I really like is whittling.
Sorry, this word has not yet downloaded in my vocab.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Whittling is like a small knife, a little handheld knife, and you get a stick and like you like carve into it. You can take off all the bark and stuff first, but then you carve into it. And I've been making like little dwarves and stuff.
That is so cool.
Find the weird thing that just, I love touching the wood. I love the muscularness of I'm a very active person, so I love how it requires quite a bit of shoulder to carve into it. I love the creative shape and how I can make the same dwarf 3 times, but they each have a different personality. So yeah, that's a very
I think that's truly amazing, and such a different way of going about it is the weirder the better. I think that's,
yeah,
especially with, as we were talking about that ego sense too, is like, what's something, I'm just having this reflective moment right now, something different.
You reflect on that while I add just something in here. Or do you want space to reflect? Sorry, I don't
no,
want to talk over.
Let's hear it.
One thing I would add too is that Gen Z and Gen A have grown up in an anti-cringe culture where everyone, there's a really interesting cultural phenomenon where cringe is bad, right? And if you're weird, you stand out. And how people express themselves is in quite subtle ways. Crocs is a good example. So everyone has Crocs, but then they put little tokens on it to make them unique, but really they're all kind of the same, homogenous, right? And so it's this little like dancing around the edges of personality and individuality. I'm a super cringe person because I do whatever I am. I'm my fullest expression of self without apology.
Yeah.
And so I think culturally too, maybe you grew up in an era where if you were different, you were weird and ostracized. And I did too, don't get me wrong. I was a bit of a weird kid in high school, but it wasn't, there wasn't as much space for it, perhaps. Whereas now there's a bit more space, perhaps, in our language to discover what your unique thing is. I talked myself in a circle there. I didn't quite make a full point, but anyway.
I think you did with the whole culture and Gen Z, Gen A situation. I'm just like recapping on like key moments in my life. For example, school, I was trying to be someone I wasn't. For example, going through school with dyslexia, I hated my dyslexia. I wanted it to go away because I was different, and that didn't look good in my eyes. And as well as going to the workforce, being in a company where you're putting on a facade, or I'm Mr. Tough Guy, I go gym, pull chicks, go clubs, and I'm 100% every day.
Knowing you, that's so funny. What version of Keone is that?
Yeah, denied.
Yeah, delete. No.
And now I'm moving into another job where everyone's so much themselves.
Beautiful.
And it's really spun me out in the culture, in the dynamics of people, let's say. Because the first company I started with, it was, yes, young people, Gen Z, 18, fairly young actually, like 18 to 24. And this company is, the job I'm doing now is people, all different age ranges. It's from 17 to 34. And I can go to work and talk about the podcast, talk about what I'm doing without judgment of, shut up, man. Like, without that. And I think that, again, that ego, the cringe culture you were talking about is such what's the word? It's a weird time we're living in because you're living up to expectations, but you're trying to be your authentic self, which with being your authentic self is that cringe.
Yeah, it's weird. It's different. Yeah, there's like this element of performativeness. And I do think I'm now making a new link in real time of like, does that contribute to the pandemic of loneliness? And social media obviously exacerbates that. But if I'm showing up to be a performative version of myself or something that I'm not, how can you connect to that?
Yeah, good
There's
point.
a hollow facade, this eggshell around me of, like, there's no actual reality, no vulnerability, none of the gushy stuff within us that helps us connect as people. Yeah.
Your book, The Anatomy of Conversation.
Ta-da! Something you prepared
Ta-da.
earlier.
Yes. I think this is an amazing tool to incorporate in this discussion, and I feel like this is a perfect time to weave it in.
Love it.
You've stacked that very nicely.
Yeah.
With having that discussion on culture, ego, and the cringe culture that we're in, which I haven't really thought of before, but now I'm seeing it. Weaving that into communication, especially when you're presenting, like, you got to be yourself presenting. People can just see through the facade. And I want to know, with your experience in keynote speaking, doing your TED Talk, how did you have to come to terms with your authentic self to present in a way that is, I want to say impress, like present to impress, because you're different. And especially being in politics as well. Like, you got to consider that as well. Like, how do you go about being authentic and presenting on stage without coming across cringy or...
I mean, the thing is, you just have to not care about what people think.
Yeah.
The cooler you are, the less you give a shit about what other people think about you. Like, right? Like, that creates the ultimate cool. If you don't give a shit. If you don't care, you're ultimate cool. It's a journey I'm still working on. I'm not ultimate cool yet. With the public speaking lens particularly, it's actually something I'm shifting right now. I have been a little bit more of a preparer, a performer. I was always worried that I would say something stupid on stage, or that I wouldn't make a point right, or that, what if they judge me because I use the wrong grammar in a sentence, whatever it could be. What I've realized is the classic Maya Angelou quote, or attributed to her, the people don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel. And keynotes for me are now that as well. It's an energetic transfer. I'm going to show up, I'm going to shine, I'm going to talk about stuff I'm excited about and how you can use it too. And there's just this really energetic transfer. That's it. That's all I'm there to do, is to create an experience in the room. Doesn't actually matter what I say, doesn't matter how tight my models are. I'm just there to create an experience with you, with the audience. The other person, the phrase that is mentioned quite a lot in Thought Leaders Business School, where I'm a student and now faculty, but Matt Church says state over script. And state over script. It's this really lovely phrase to remember, like, what is my best state? How do I prepare for the keynote to get my state solid? So have I done my exercise? Have I eaten vegetables? I'm not hungover, like getting my energy clean, and then getting the intent I have with connecting with the room, the intent of where the room is and where they want to go. It's also something you navigate when you're on stage, Ooh, someone kind of raised this and there were a lot of nods. Let's keep going there. Like, there's a really, when you sink deeper into yourself, it actually becomes easier, because then you aren't trying. You aren't trying to be something. You aren't trying to prove yourself. You aren't trying to meet an expectation that's an imagined projection. You're actually just showing up and being with them, present in the moment. And that's all we have. And that's where the really rich and raw experiences happen that transform us.
I 100% agree with that. But how did you learn this on your... Obviously, let's look at your life as a bit of a spectrum, on door knocking to being a very well-experienced keynote speaker. At what point did that click for you?
Oh, it's only ever deepening is what I would say, right?
Okay.
So door knocking is an example. You have a script, right? Hi, I'm here. I'm Emma. I'm a volunteer with the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. I'm here to talk about the upcoming election. Have you heard about the upcoming election, right? It's question 1, question 2, question 3. It's a script. You have opportunities to go off script a bit. Like if they mention the economy, you might bring up, one of the proposals or plans that your candidate's supporting. There's a bit of nuance, a bit of things that you can bring to the conversation that are not planned, but yet it started in deep script. Then, I don't know, just over time, my TED Talk actually was almost completely scripted. I just memorized it and delivered it really well. Again, I have a background in delivering scripts with compassion and
a skill in itself.
A skill in itself. But I was so nervous about it. I in 12 minutes, and I want to make sure I hit my points. So that was completely scripted. And then, it's again only in the last probably 2 years that I've shifted into trusting myself. That's probably the biggest difference, is now I trust myself. I know I have the skills. I have the comfort on a stage, and I trust myself to know what to do next. I trust that the words will come out of me that the audience needs to hear.
Yeah. I think that's a point I've also noticed on script versus off script, especially when you hear people pick up the phone. For example, when I've had to force myself out of this. For example, when someone calls you, "Good morning, this is Kearney." Like, "Good morning, this is Kearney speaking." Like that vocal tone, that the dynamics of voice. And I think this is something also isn't spoken enough on when it comes to communication, public speaking, is when you have that, "Hello, my name is Kearney. Today we'll be speaking,"
Australians crack me up. You guys do statement questions.
Oh, it's terrible.
You crack me up so much. Yeah, you don't ask questions. You say, "Let's go get a coffee before the meeting." That's a statement. And you just put an upward inflection and called it a question. Like, "The movies are on Saturday." Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to go? Like, would you like to come to the movies with me? Would you like to go on a walk? Like, you forget the question words, so it's culturally a thing as well.
And you bring up in your book such an amazing point with the open, ask, listen, respond, and the close. This process. And I think this is such a important process to consider, the off script and on script, and knowing, obviously you can't base every conversation on script.
Yeah.
Shit's going to pop up. You're going to have to learn to improvise quickly on stage or off stage. And with this open, ask, listen, respond, close. Do you mind telling me a bit about this? Obviously, this is the fire analogy, which I'd love for you to explain a bit more. Can you explain the root of that?
Yes. I'm like, how do I do it shortly? No. When I was writing this, so I'm a master of conversations, right?
Yep.
Strategic facilitator. I've been facilitating conversations in communities all around the world for 15 years, 17 years now, long time. So, and I was trying to figure out how to take the organic, evolving, unpredictable nature of a conversation and put it into some structure, right? Because I have a very analytical side to match my creative side. And so I was like, all right, surely there's a way it can lock in. And so, opening the conversation, so my fire analogy alongside this is such a great way to illustrate it. Yeah. So think of a campfire, right? And the reason why I love this metaphor is because around the fire we've gathered for generations, right? It's the common place where humans come, where we feel that sense of warmth. Around the fire we discuss, we resolve, we dream, we laugh, we whoop, we sing. Like this place, this gathering around the fire is perhaps what's missing. That solves that pandemic of loneliness.
Yes.
It's that third space.
Yes.
That space of deep connection. So those conversations we have around the fire, our devices are put away. We're there. We're present. So that's why I love the fire as a metaphor. But the fire also helps explain how to have a conversation, because a fire is similarly unpredictable. You don't know how it's going to burn, if the wind's going to change, what's going to happen. So the stages of a conversation, as you've said, also relate to the fire. And how you open the conversation is like how you start the fire. So when you're starting a fire, coming from Alaska and Minnesota, we had lots of bonfires, so I'm very articulate in this. You start the fire by building like a teepee or like a Lincoln log, whatever structure is the initial structure before you set it up and start lighting it. And that's similar to how you open the conversation, setting up a bit of structure, a bit of framing, setting your intention, setting the shared direction you want to move in. Opening the conversation is probably the most important part that you can invest your preparation in, because that is the part you can control. The part where you say, "Hey, boss, I'm thinking, I'm planning on leaving this job. I've gotten a new role and I'm really excited by it. I want to discuss with you how to best manage the transition of me exiting the organization so that we can both benefit from this transition and that you aren't left hanging."
Damn, you're really good at that.
Right? Like,
That's
listen
really
to that
cool.
opening frame.
Yeah.
It's me and you against the problem. I'm telling you explicitly and openly, and let's work on it together, right? So, like, again, however you set the open, there's bajillions of examples: personal life, family life, with loved ones, all kinds of spaces. So opening the conversation. Anyway, I get distracted. Ask, listen, respond is the churn of a conversation. Asking questions, listening with care, responding with curiosity and with consideration and creativity. Asking is like adding a log, right? So when you add a log, you're adding more fuel. When you ask a question, you are opening that conversation up again to navigate it, to explore it. So if you're tired and you don't want to keep talking about it, don't ask another question, right? Because it'll just keep it going. Listening is like when you observe the fire, how it's burning, why is it going a bit cold? Maybe it's a bit too hot or too smothered on that side, adjusting the logs. And then responding is how you adjust the logs to get it to burn better. Maybe you have to stack them a bit so it creates more airflow, or maybe you want to adjust the coals and pull them in so there's a bit more heat. Maybe you're about to do marshmallows, so you want to spread out the coals and use it to roast some marshmallows.
Yeah.
So that ask, listen, respond is just that monitoring of the fire. How's it going? How's it burning? Is everybody in it? All right. Is it scorching anyone? Is smoke blowing anywhere? Okay. Let's keep dialing it in, keep looking at it all and keeping a hold of it. Even though it's an organic thing, you can still navigate it. You can still prepare for it. And then closing the conversation, of course, putting out the fire, spreading out the coals, pouring water on it, whatever it is, making sure that you close it down with grace. And if you leave a conversation just hanging, it feels incomplete. Like if you have that conversation and you just sort of walk away suddenly, or it gets disrupted, tying it off in a little bow, recapping what was said gives people something to talk about moving forward. They now know what the meaning of that conversation was, asking a question or giving them a takeaway, something to do. But it just completes it, which is really satisfying.
Yeah, I really like that analogy, and it's a good way to see the depth of a conversation. For example, you're not born in Australia, so you coming to Australia, you're probably been told, "G'day, mate. How are you?"
Oh my God. Yeah.
Good, thanks. Yourself?
How you going? How you going?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the ultimate transactional conversation. My favorite is one time I tried it at the shops and I ran into a guy who kind of bumped in the aisles. I was like, "How you going?" He went, "How you going?" I was like, wait, I don't even know if you're good or fine. Like there was no information passed. We just passed a question.
But even if you say, good, I don't give a shit.
Nah.
Like,
It's
even
a script.
on a walk, it's, "Hey, mate, how are you?" And I just, half the time, being like, "Hello," like with a smile, because by the time I respond, I'm like, "Oh, actually, I'm really struggling."
Yeah.
Oh, okay, they're 100 meters
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to see the depth of conversation with that fire analogy, and just made me visually see our podcast conversation as a fire. I'm like, okay, the start of a podcast is always a bit like, which are we going on script, off script, like we were talking about earlier, and it's this quick decision or the depth on you don't know what the guest is going to say or what the host is going to say, and how to transition that and weave it in a way that the fire is constantly lit.
Yeah,
You're
maintained.
not like, "Oh, bonfire, yes," and then a plane flies over and drops a bunch of water, and then it's out, and then there's a little smother of little fire.
Yeah.
Such a good creative way of visually seeing it.
And you're a brilliant host and a brilliant facilitator, Keone. Thank you for wrangling the conversation we've had, particularly, and finding the common thread.
Emma, it's my pleasure, and thank you so much for coming on the show. And it's a learning experience and a journey which I'll be on for a very long time, and I'm looking forward to the growth that you're going to have with self-discovery and your business, keynote speaking, and I'm sure our paths will cross once again.
Definitely. I have one more thing I want to add.
Absolutely.
It's busting out of me. Just on the how you going conversations.
Yeah.
That is the first opportunity for real connection in any conversation.
Yes.
And it's really, really, it's such an easy one. I do it all the time, like in the elevator in my apartment building. "How you going?" "Oh yeah, going good." And then they'll ask me, "How you going?" And I'll be like, "Well, I just did a big leg day at the gym, so I'm kind of gassed." And they'll be like, "Oh my God, I did a leg day."
Repeating that.
Or no, I'll say an honest answer. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
When someone asks you how you going, and you do have, walking on the street is hard, but if someone asks you how you going and you have space to honestly respond. That's how we move it into connection. That's how we move it from just a transactional, "How you going?" "Good, fine, good, fine, good, fine." move it to down a level, and it gives people something to talk about, something to connect to, something to grab onto, because there's actually a rough edge, something interesting. So my example is, in the elevator, if someone asks me like, how you going? I'll be like, oh, I just recorded a podcast. It was really exciting. And they'll be like, oh, what podcast? Oh, what do you do? Like it starts the conversation and that builds connection.
Even like, how are you going? Like, how are you really going?
How you going, really? Yeah.
Yeah, like emphasizing that. I feel like that would have a bit more depth to it as well.
Yes, and but one thing I've noticed is that you have to lead the vulnerability. Because even if you ask, how you going, really? They'll be like, oh, no, I'm good. But if you're like, people sometimes don't know how to do that, how to answer honestly. Some people are afraid to answer honestly. So if you can step up and model or show them what an honest answer looks like, then they will mirror that. And the thing with vulnerability is that you can determine the depth. So if you ask how you going and I'm saying, oh, I've been doing a lot of shadow work today and I'm just in the muck, no mud, no lotus. You're going to be like, oh shit, okay, I got to hold space for this. Okay, how you going? Like pitch your vulnerability appropriately. Like you don't want to dump a new friend into that depth.
Drop the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
And you're in a lift.
Yeah, never. With my neighbor down the road who's like 65-year-old Alan. No, Alan would be like, cool. Ooh, okay, my floor, see ya. Like, like awkward, right? So pitch the vulnerability at the right level for the right person for how they can hold the space. And again, I often joke that I'm an expert in conversations because I've had 10,000 awkward moments where I messed it up and I learned from it, kind of.
I even see a future episode, how to have a conversation in a lift.
Done.
That's a good one.
We could do conversations a lot. Yes. I would love to come back.
Emma Gibbens, thank you very much. The last guest I interviewed on the podcast left a question for you. And this question is, what moment are you truly proud of in your life?
There's many moments that flood of like when I was in service to others and it didn't require a thank you or there was no intent. It just happened. The really tiny, I'm going to give a very tiny one because the entirety of my life is too big. But like I was in a bit of a hole and I pulled myself out of it. And I was walking around my neighborhood doing errands and I was in the grocery store line and I just had this like little cheeky interaction with the couple behind me, and we both had a bit of a giggle and a laugh about, I think it was like a sweet potato or something like rolled in, like we just had a little giggle and a laugh. And having a giggle and a laugh with a stranger just really it brightened my day, it brightened their day. It was a little moment of connection. So it's not a profound moment, but being able to see something and to reach out to someone next to me and say like, hey, that was weird, am I right? And they're like, yeah, that was weird, and have a laugh about it was those are the moments I'm most proud of.
I love that. Well said. What question do you want to leave for the next guest?
And actually I would like you to answer as well, because I think it might help you figure out what your weird is.
Okay, I'm a bit nervous now.
No, it's all right.
Cool.
How did you play as a child?
How did I play as a child? I played as a child a lot with, I want to say being others, but that's probably real.
What do you mean?
Dark, being like others. Like, for example, I really wanted to be in the army, so I'd dress up as a army person.
Oh, imagination costumes.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
And I would cut down the apple tree in the backyard and build a little army fort, bought a camo net, had that over it, so I was really in the zone. That's how I played, really.
Cool.
Being in a movie, let's say.
Yeah.
Or even playing with like Indiana Jones figurines, and Star Wars figurines too. Having a bit of a separate world in the reality I was living. It was imagination to its finest.
Oh, cool. And look at how alive you come talking about it.
Yeah.
I have to ask, do you know live action role play?
Live action role play.
Yeah, LARPing. Have you ever heard of this?
No, but I know this is something that I'm going to start doing with reading books. For example, reading, this is going to help my public speaking and my podcast hosting journey. In reading a book and putting on different role plays in voice, for example.
Oh, yeah.
now I'm professional, and maybe I got to work on my English literature to improve this professionalism on my delivery of the speech.
Okay.
Or we take it to a whole new level and we are just joking around, having fun. You know, do you get the vibe?
Yeah.
Like experimenting with the transition between personalities and keeping it authentic. I think that's a world of journeys within itself.
Yeah. I have one hiccup in that is that you're still doing it for work, for some productive outlet of a thing, of an intention to improve myself.
Yeah.
Play should be playful. Playful has no intent. Play has no outcome.
Okay, good
play
point.
is just play. Like, it won't be restful if you're, okay, I've just finished my gas day at work and now I got to go do the thing where I read the books so that I can put on the voices so I can improve my speaking. Like, absolutely. But I'd encourage you to go for play's sake. And I know that out in the Swan Valley, they do like, basically like live action is where you step into another made up world and you wear costumes, and often there's like fake money. You interact with other people. You can put on an accent. You could be a falconer one day. You could be an elf the next day. Like, so yeah, find your crazy group of people who love wearing costumes and putting on personalities. Maybe that's something you could do for fun that feeds your soul and feeds your spirit, not just for a productive outcome.
What's the saying? The weirder, the better. You never know. I love that. Emma Gibbens, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you, Keone.